Do we have the answer after all this time to explain Nebraska's football decline? Is it actually the lack of traditional rivalries?
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here. Let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now.
All right, welcome. Friday mailbag show. Connor Hepper, Mitch Sherman with you here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Happy Friday to you. We have bunches of questions today, so let's get to them. Let's go to Kansas City first, KCMO to be more precise, from Steve. How much of the hype around Nebraska's new jersey reveal was just returning the favor to Adidas for sponsoring Battle of the Boneyard? It feels like a textbook win-win. Adidas funds an event that brings elite recruits to Lincoln, and in return, Nebraska drops a new uniform that appeals to modern players while giving Adidas a prime opportunity to capitalize on selling the new jerseys to a passionate fan base.
Yeah, it does. It does have the feel of a you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours kind of event, and that may make more business sense than the idea that I threw out on Monday that it was all for Nebraska to generate revenue. And you could do both of those things at the same time.
Definitely.
I've thought about how much money Nebraska could possibly make on jersey sales, and they're going for $130 on Huskers.com. And I think you can buy them at some other retailers as well. Nebraska gets a cut of that. It's going to take a lot of jersey sales to really make a dent in the amount of money that Nebraska has to spend in order to do things on the scale that they like to do them as an athletic department. So that can be a part of it. But yeah, I do think that this is something for Adidas. This is a favor for Adidas. And it helped the unveil of the jersey, which was a big deal to Adidas, I would imagine, for Nebraska to promote it the way that it did and treat it as a news event.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like an exact one-to-one, but yeah, there's no doubt Adidas benefits from Nebraska making a new uniform, and you could do jersey sales like we've said before. I don't know if it's exactly because, they sponsored the Battle of the Boneyard thing and were able to do the 7-on-7 tournament. Nebraska is one of the sort of highest ranking schools that Adidas has in its repertoire, and I think there's no doubt that they work together in concert on a lot of different things. And so if Nebraska comes up with the idea, it's like, hey, we want to freshen up our uniform, Adidas is never going to say no to that. No doubt about it.
I don't think Nebraska's never going to get into a situation where it's going to have an underwhelming unveil for something like that. Like they're going to hype it up because it's a big deal to one of their primary partners in the business of college athletics. So I think that's a logical conclusion to draw. I would like to see, and this would be a really interesting kind of investigative. That's probably a little too strong of a word, but I would be interested to see the numbers and how much Nebraska makes and how much Adidas makes and what the profit margin, the markup is on those jerseys, and how that $130 breaks down when Nebraska makes a sale, and then how many of them they sell when there's a rebrand like this.
Yeah, me too. Speaking of jerseys, Brett has a comment here. He says, totally agree with you, Mitch, about Nebraska's uniform unveiling. It was overhyped and underwhelming, which is befitting for a team and staff that has done nothing but overhype and underperform. I don't mind the uniforms themselves. I don't even mind that they removed the winning tradition patch. However, I am disappointed that they didn't replace it with a 7-5 patch, which I don't know if it would go over very well. Anyway, Brett's question is this. Do you think Nebraska's lack of rivalries in the Big Ten has contributed to our decline in football? I would say definitely yes, and I'll point to Colorado's old coach, Bill McCartney, manufacturing the NUCU rivalry that helped them win their championship. I like the Iowa rivalry, but it needs amped up even more. Also, I'd like to see Nebraska's AD step up and make the Minnesota and Wisconsin game a guarantee every year. Agreed. I'm astonished that this hasn't happened already. If those team can't/won't, find someone else, even if it's a non-con team every year. Bring on the Arkansas rivalry, just as an example.
Yeah, Nebraska would like to have a second opponent that it plays every year.
Iowa has all three of them. I mean, I think it'd be great if all four of those schools played each other every year.
Well, I think that's the problem. I don't think they're all on board. I think they all have now. Iowa, for whatever reason, maybe it's geographical, and Iowa borders all three of those states. Minnesota really does not. There's not a Nebraska-Minnesota border. Close, but Iowa's the team that I think can get everybody on board with those rivalries. Nebraska would probably like to have Wisconsin. Wisconsin might like to have Minnesota. Minnesota might like to have, I don't know. Minnesota might want to play everybody else more often and not have the rivalry against anybody but Iowa. So like getting them to agree to it, I think, and have everybody on the same page is the problem that they're dealing with in making more of a protected situation for Nebraska. And really, if you look around the league, the Nebraska's more in the norm to have one protected rival. That Iowa's the only one with three in the current form of Big Ten scheduling. But what you say, Brett, it's all legit on. I don't think that the downfall of Nebraska football is related to the removal of rivalries. I won't go that far. I think that there are a lot of other things that we always bring up about people within the athletic department mismanaging decades of
the bigger one.
Yeah, decades of like cooperation that should have been much easier to handle. But yeah, this is like it can be a contributing factor. The only thing I'll maybe take issue with you on is I think the Iowa rivalry is getting amped up. I don't know that it needs any more artificial amping up. Like it's there at this point after 15 years.
Yeah, I think that's real. And there's a reason why. Like I think this goes to Brett's point. There's a reason why. I mean, first of all, that there's the obvious of there's a natural rivalry in there. But they have played each other every single year since the two have been in the conference. And I do think that matters. And they've played each other, in fact, on the same day every year since the two have been in the Big Ten Conference. So I think that's real. And
that's a big part of it.
100%. And so I do think it is a contributing factor, certainly not the biggest one. But I talked about this a lot. I mean, I think Nebraska this comes with time. They've struggled with finding opponents in the conference who feel a genuine hatred or emotion toward them, whatever it might be. Nebraska had all that stuff built in with the time that they spent in the previous conference that they were in and the proximity to all of those teams. And it became natural over a long period of time. You knew what to expect in whatever series that they were playing. And so it just happens. It happens with time. And there's no doubt that it would benefit everyone if everyone felt a certain. I mean, that's why Iowa has the three. I mean, they absolutely feel an emotion toward Wisconsin and toward Minnesota, and they feel it back. And that's what makes rivalries fun.
Yep, I agree. Let's go to next question from John in Cedar Falls. Jeep Wade described running the offensive line counterplay, and it sounded like an identity to me. So this is a quote from Jeep Wade. I was looking for where this came from. There is an interview with looks like Herd at Sports that he did. And he says, quote, "I believe that athleticism in the polls, in the type PULLS, like pulling guards, and the type of kids we're recruiting to, once again, you don't want to be a coach that after the season you flip on your cut-ups and you ran this play 12 times and you ran this play 14 times and you got good at nothing. That I can promise you will not happen here. We are going to hang our hat on something." Yeah, that's the end of the quote. And that does sound like Jeep wanting to have an identity. Here's more from John. Does it seem to you that Nebraska over the last few years got good at nothing in particular? Are you encouraged that Coach Wade wants to specialize and recruit to that specialization? Is that what you mean when you wish the Huskers had an offensive identity?
Absolutely. Yes, and yes. This is music to my ears. It doesn't matter what it is. And it's not just like running count, like being good at count. I mean, that's an identity inside of the identity, but I think controlling the line of scrimmage, however you want to control the line of scrimmage, that is up to you. And it feels like he's identified, all right, this is one thing that I specialize in. This is one thing that I'm good at and that I can recruit to, and that'll just churn every single year. And we'll have that to fall back on. That's what identity is. It's when you're tired in the fourth quarter and you can't even really think straight and the bells are ringing and it's loud in there. You got to have something that you could do just mindlessly, and Nebraska hasn't really had that. It's been our friend Sam McEwen always uses this phrase, and I agree with it completely. It just oftentimes has felt like Nebraska has had a pick a play offense where they're trying to manufacture some sort of way to get a touchdown or to get a first down, and that's all great in theory. In the moment, they've spent a lot of time just trying to get first downs, right? And getting touchdowns. Ultimately, yes, that is the goal, but there needs to be a bigger picture to it. And that's what an identity is. And yes, it would help them tremendously if they had that.
Jeep Wade is a big win for Nebraska right now at this moment in time before he's coached a game. He's done a lot for Nebraska in a short period of time, whether it's gathering talent or bringing his imprint to the offense and the offensive line. So I'm excited to see where that goes in the next few months. And for more on Jeep Wade, you can find my article on The Athletic on Friday about Barrett Kittrell and Nebraska's month of June and its recruiting. And there are Jeep Wade undertones, Jeep Wade commentary embedded within that article. We will take a break. We will come back, and we have a question about another article that was out on The Athletic on Thursday about Tommie Frazier. That is coming up after this.
First word from FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is off and rolling. Every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal could completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting. From the open and whistle to the final kick. And now FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals mean more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. We are now going into the tournament portion of this.
Knockouts.
The U.S. has put themselves in a very, very good position. And so now is the time to lock in. This is where it gets even more intense. So every goal pays, ladies and gentlemen, on FanDuel. That is what you're going to want to remember. Make sure to flip that token on when you get on the app. Benefit from each goal scored from the opening whistle to the final kick. Let there be goals on FanDuel. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today.
Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. The Everydayer Club is there. Now is the time. Get involved. Jump in. Ad-free shows, access to our group chat, and the Discord chat. Head to the link in the show notes for more details. All right, we go back to the mailbag and have a question from, I believe it is Brian. Yes, Brian on Twitter. Thank you for this. In response to a story that I have out on The Athletic on Thursday about Tommie Frazier and his greatness, his aura from the 1990s. This is part of a series that's been running all week on The Athletic about college football in the 90s. So I didn't do a one-off on Tommie Frazier. We're not living in the past here, folks. We are as an entire company, because
it's not just
late,
you.
It's late June.
Yeah.
Yes. So Brian says, do you have any sense why Frazier doesn't receive more acclaim today? Recency bias surely plays a role for why Tim Tebow appears on more best of lists. But as you wrote, Mitch, Frazier was a generational talent. Still, he isn't quite a household name now.
It's a great question. I think there's a couple things. First and foremost, he did win the Heisman. I mean, that's probably one thing. That award was so much. It's almost hard to put into people who listening to this who lived through that time period completely understand what I'm saying, but it's almost difficult to talk about how little the award means now compared to what it was in the 90s.
True.
I mean, it's true. Just it was so much of a factor, and because there was just so little acclaim to be able to give to individual players, and so the Heisman was the biggest deal. And so there's that. And I think Nebraska was sort of viewed as less of a, certainly not a one-man wrecking crew, and more of like an absolute killing machine, like everywhere. With All-Americans spread across both sides of the ball and professionals spread across both sides of the ball. Obviously, Tommie, you listen to people who played back then or grew up watching it, they'll say, wait a second, hey, we have to include Tommie Frazier in all these conversations, which is something I appreciate. But like kids these days, at risk of sounding incredibly old, kids these days, they don't think much about Tommie Frazier, probably, certainly if you're not a Nebraska fan.
Yeah, and it was 30 plus years ago, and it's like talking about the 60s and the 90s, as I've verbalized before. It's way out of your mind. Tebow played in 2009, so much more recently than Tommie Frazier, and he did win the Heisman, and he did play in the NFL, and then he became a media star. So you can find him all over ESPN and the SEC network and whatever else he does. Tommie is primarily in the background and doesn't do a lot of appearances, doesn't do a lot of interviews. You don't see him
pro career,
Right. So I think some of that, and just the time of it, that it was twice as long ago as Tim Tebow. That's why you don't see him get the same kind of acclaim. Although I do think he's a household name for people who watched college football in the 90s and appreciated it back then. It's just that was a long time ago. And, you could point to another article that was out Thursday. Bruce Feldman from The Athletic ranked the top 25 players from that decade. And Frazier came in third behind Charles Woodson and Orlando Pace, whose names Charles Woodson, Orlando Pace, incredible players in college and the NFL. And then there was Frazier at number 3. So that's a lot of respect.
And Nebraska only had one other player on the top 25, and that was Will Shields coming in at 23. By the way, Mitch, I've really enjoyed all the 90s lists this week. It's a perfect week for it to drop, and it's very fun to go through and sort of relive that a little bit. So
it's supposed to coincide with the World Cup, since the last time the World Cup was here was in the 90s.
Okay.
And so there you go. That's a loose way to get to college football in the 90s, but also there's so much focus on the World Cup that with college football you had to find some way to connect to that. Everything's about the World Cup right now, which is cool. Greg in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma says, hi fellas, if the turnover of coaches continues at the current pace, does it signal that there is something rotten in Denmark?
I mean, it hasn't been that bad. I think they're turning over at a relatively, I guess I'd be curious to see what the stats are on this for everybody, but I think Nebraska's turning over at a decently reasonable pace. And as we've talked about before, the coaches that have been removed for a reason. And so I don't really have a problem with how the staff has come together right now. You test it out, you see what works, and you churn it, and you tweak. We're tweaking, and you do it again next year.
I think Greg just wanted to have a Shakespearean reference in his question. We don't get many of those on the mailbag, but or on our show in general. But I can just agree with you there on that one. Let's go to Michael in Leroy, Michigan. He says, Florida recently announced a $1.45 billion, did they really? Stadium renovation project. Is Nebraska cheaping out by spending less than half as much and spending less than other major stadium renovation projects going on in the Big Ten right now? Hello, Northwestern and Penn State. That's my ad lib there. If they're going to do it, Nebraska and disrupt the stadium season for at least a season. I would like to see it done right because it's going to be a long, long time before they redo it again.
I think for the record, I think they'll do it right. I mean, I also think the initial price tag is going to be a little different from the final one. Sure. So there's that. That number
still a lot of money.
Last week was staggering. Almost $5 billion.
What are they doing? Are they building a whole community around the stadium?
You know what's funny, from the renderings, it didn't look like a whole lot different, but I assume it's pretty run down in the guts
swamp.
of that place, much like it is at Nebraska.
Yeah, the swamp needs an overhaul, apparently. You could always spend more, but you can only spend as much as you have and as much as you're able to responsibly obtain through the methods that Nebraska's planning to do it. They're not going to send themselves into debilitating debt in order to do this project. And if they had somebody who stepped up and gave them $500 million and said, whatever you need for the stadium, then I think this would have been announced as a bigger project, and they would have found a way to make this bigger, or they would have, there were certainly, when they went through the RFP process and they planned this, there were things that there were places where they cut back, where they could have done more, and that will continue to come up in the construction process. Maybe they'll come into more money. It's not too late for them to find a few $100 million more and make this an even bigger project. But at $650 or $700 million, whatever it ends up being, they're gonna put out a nice product. You're not gonna feel like you're walking into a stadium where Nebraska cheaped out by spending less than others when this is done in a couple years.
Yeah, I think they landed in a pretty good spot. Let's go to Kyle in Waxahachie, Texas. I think that's how you pronounce that. While hearing about the potential at quarterback for Anthony Colandrea and Trey Taylor, I can't help but think of a quote from Matt Rule from last season. Quote,
"You got TJ Lateef."
We got TJ Lateef. I'm assuming Colandrea and Taylor are QB1 and QB2 in the future. What do you think Lateef will do? Will he be content as a QB3 behind Taylor if the battle doesn't go his way? Or will he pull a Dylan Biola and hit the transfer portal?
We got TJ Lateef.
No, he will not be content as QB3 in his third year in the program. He's here to compete. He's here to win the job right now. In TJ Lateef's mind, he's going into camp in early August to compete with Anthony Colandrea and try to be the starting quarterback this year in 2026. So if 2027 rolls around, or it looks like a situation where 2027 is going to roll around and he's going to be QB3, then I think that will be time for him. He'll leave.
I don't even think he sticks around as QB2. Like if it's sure. Next year, if it's 2027 and Colandrea comes back, Taylor's in the room as a freshman and he beats him out for the backup, or it looks like he's going to be the backup behind Colandrea, I still think he's go. The clock is ticking at that point. Yeah. So it is definitely hard to imagine a world in which all three of Colandrea, Taylor, and Lateef are on the roster at the same time. Very difficult to imagine.
Yeah, he's being patient by sticking it out a second year after starting the 4 games. He's willing to. He's not willing, but he will stay. I guess he has no choice at this point. But he knew the situation. He knew the writing on the wall. He knew they brought in Anthony Colandrea to probably be the starter, and he chose to stay, which shows loyalty beyond what you get with a lot of quarterbacks. I don't expect that will happen for a second year if he's not in position to start.
Yep, agreed. All right, we got several more questions that we need to roll through, and announcement after this.
Oh yeah. All right, a word now from Odoo. Running a business should not feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and then somehow none of those departments talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together on one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place in harmony, helping your team move fast, stay organized, and focus on the growing that the business needs instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success is not just about talent. It's about having everyone work toward the same goal. We just saw a lot of that on display in Omaha here during the College World Series. It's not about having the most talent. I feel like I heard that a time or two during that big event. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's what you should do by getting Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Okay, I will take this out here. We are going to tell you right now about the big announcement that we teased on the show on Thursday. So we here at the Locked On Nebraska podcast are excited to partner with the Kansas City Royals in advance of Husker Day at the K on July 18th. Maybe you've been to this event before. I have. I've been to the Husker Day at the K. Yes, it's cool. In the show notes today, and you'll be able to find it on our social media, our Locked On Nebraska social media, you will find a link, specially discounted tickets at that link, designed for you to purchase tickets to that game on July 18th and for parking. The Royals will be hosting the San Diego Padres. The game is at 3:10 p.m. Central Time. Second game out of the All-Star break, so should be a good pitching matchup with everyone getting rested up. If you've not been to those Husker Royals events in the past, there will be Nebraska-themed activities and appearances during the game. Maybe you'll be able to see Alex Gordon there. No promises, but he has been known to make an appearance at those things. And if you purchase the specially themed tickets, you will receive a co-branded Royals Nebraska tumbler that you can pick up inside of Gate A on the day of the game.
These have been huge successes in the past. There's a huge, Nebraska contingent that finds it, a thing every summer to go down to Royals games. I myself included in this. And so we're incredibly excited to partner with the Royals on this. So use the link in the description of this episode, and that'll help us out, and it'll help you out as well. Get in. I remember going to the Husker Day at the K I think it was 2014. James Shields threw a complete game shutout against the San Francisco Giants, and I was a very happy young boy, and well, not young boy, I was like 21 or 22 or whatever, but I was very happy, and it was Husker Day at the K, and they won 5-0. And then I was even happier months later when the Royals played the Giants.
I was going to say, did you say 2014? Because there were a lot of things in 2014 that made me happy about the Royals.
That was great. It was great times
until game 7. But we won't talk about that. All right. We got to get back to the mailbag here from Adam. He says, "Hey guys, I continue to love the show and have especially enjoyed the discussion on fictitious conference realignment the last few weeks. And who can blame me? Because what's a better topic for Nebraska fans to discuss in the month of June?" That's not my question, though. My question is, what other schools do you think would put Nebraska in their ideal 10-team conference? And then he goes on to describe it. We don't need to go through everything that Adam said, but he threw out a lot of theories. I just want to throw it out to you, Connor. What schools are putting Nebraska in their ideal top 10?
Honestly, I think most of the ones that we put in our fake conference that we made up, Iowa certainly would. I guess I don't know about Minnesota or Wisconsin. I'm not sure on that.
This goes well with the question that we answered earlier about whether those teams even want to have a protected rivalry with Nebraska, and apparently not. Yeah.
Almost all the old Big 12 North. I mean,
I think so. Yeah,
K-State, Kansas,
Colorado,
Missouri. I think all of them would be like, yes, I need Nebraska back in my conference.
What about like a Miami? Would Miami put Nebraska in its 10? Probably not, but it would be
been like a regional rival program, like they're just such a national brand, right?
I mean, they would have Notre Dame. They would have Florida State. They would probably have Florida, although that rivalry is not as much of a thing. And then you just got to think about like what? Who else? I mean, are they going to have like Virginia Tech, or would they rather have somebody who they have a ton of history with from way back in the glory days, like a Nebraska?
Some of those
would Texas scoff at Nebraska and say, "You are not worthy of our 10"? No way. I don't know. Nebraska, shocking here. Nebraska doesn't move the meter with Texas fans in quite the same way that Texas does for Nebraska fans. But they'd be on Oklahoma's list. That's
Oklahoma would, for sure. Yeah, Oklahoma would be cool with it. Texas probably wouldn't because they would snuff their nose up and they would say, we're in the SEC now. Why would we need to play Nebraska?
Well, they would have Texas A&M and Texas Tech, and they might not. They might snub Texas Tech. They would have Alabama and LSU and.
Good question, but I think the answer is most of the same ones that we included in ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. I like it. Good job, Adam. From James. Okay, this is off the beaten path.
Here we go.
It's vacation time. If you could travel for vacation anywhere or any time to see any sporting event, where would you go? James's submission is Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman, the Rumble in the Jungle from Manila. That would be his choice.
Oh my God.
What would you like to see historically? You got the whole world at your fingertips. Where are you going?
The Miracle on Ice, maybe.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So what was that? The semifinal of the 80 or
Lake Placid.
Yeah. Yeah. The 80 Olympics, 80, whatever it was. 84.
Yeah. Those are two great ones. Would you like to go to the Olympic Games and watch Usain Bolt run a 9.6 second 100-meter dash? I would like to see
a lot of work for just 9 seconds, but
then you would be able to see more. I think he ran like a sub 19 something, 19.2 or 19.3 200 at that same Olympics. Was that London? I think that was London. Could be wrong. I'm not like a huge track guy, but you got me thinking about that because of the Olympics. Because I said, well, what else? What else in the Olympics? There's got to be something amazing in the Olympics. And I got one. Usain Bolt jumped in my head.
How about Tiger winning the 19 Masters when
when he was old?
Yeah. When he was old, yeah.
Or what about his first Masters?
That would be good too, but we didn't know at that point. Like, and you wouldn't know. I guess you would know because you're a time traveler. In this sense, you're a time traveler.
You're a time.
You go back to his first Masters, and you're like, "Whoa, this is greatness," but nobody really gets it yet. That's not a bad idea.
Tiger at his first Masters. Okay. Golf would be a great way to go, I think, because you get your money's worth. Because if you went to like the Masters or a U.S. Open, an iconic U.S. Open or something like that, you could have 4 days to watch a sporting event, where I propose the exact opposite, giving myself less than 10 seconds to watch something that happened in sports history. So either way might work.
I love the question, though. We need more mailbag questions like that.
I mean, I would happily go to 2015 and watch the Royals win the World Series, or back to 1985 and watch the Royals win Game 7 of the World Series, which I did attend. So I will have
Game 7 in 85 is low key awesome because it was just a
blowout,
bludgeoning. Yeah, it was just a party. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just at Game 3 of the College World Series Finals, and Oklahoma was partying for 5 innings. I'm like, this is awesome. This is so much fun.
Similar, yeah. Okay, we go to Scott in Windsor, Ontario. First off, my 2 cents on the new uniforms. They're all right. Could be better. Could be worse. I think the ideal number to put on the uniform in the promo pics instead of 26 is 67. Good one, Scott. 6'7". Moving on. Now that the Huskers have gone back to a 4-3 defense, what will the linebackers look like? Will it be traditional Mike, Sam, Will? Or will they still keep a Jack in the game who will be a pass rushing specialist?
No, I think you're looking for, I mean, and once again, they're not beholden to one scheme here.
Right.
So that always needs to be mentioned with this. But, you're looking at linebackers who I think are a little bit bigger and more athletic and more versatile Now you always want that in general to put them at whatever spot that you can. That's the beauty of linebackers. If they're tough and physical enough, and they could kind of play anywhere. But yeah, there's in theory there's two of them on the field.
It's a 4-2-5, and I'm not sure if I read it that way or if I read it the way that Scott in the question asked it, but it's a 4-2-5, not a 4-3. But a 4-2-5 can very quickly become a 4-3 if you take out the nickel and put in a Sam linebacker, and a 4-3 can quickly become a 4-2-5. Typically, though, if you're actually in a base 4-2-5, there is no strong side linebacker. You'll have a Mike and a Will. And then there are some alterations that happen in a typical 4-2-5 up on the front too, where like the weak side defensive end the strong side defensive end. No, the weak side defensive end can be in a 2-point stance. So he kind of has a hand in the ground, stand him up. Yeah. And that's really what the Jack did. That was the Jack last year for Nebraska. So a weak side defensive end is like the Jack in this version of the defense. It's defense is defense. Like they got to go tackle people, and they got to rush the passer, and they got to be aggressive in the secondary. And I mean,
this allows you for a little bit more versatility, just a little bit. And I think that's sort of what you're going for. They do need some more athleticism at the linebacker spot, and so we'll see if they're able to put that out there. And I think it helps you if in a scheme where there's in theory less linebackers on the field. It helps you if you're a little shallow at that position, and I think Nebraska kind of is. So I think there's that too.
Okay, we finished the mailbag today with Vince in Napa. Yes, Vince, we did get your question. Let's go. It. Thank you for following up. Happy Friday once again, fellas. This is more of a thought than a question. Shocking. But feel free to expound. Like most Husker fans and media that covered the team in that era, I was saddened by the passing of longtime Nebraska secondary coach George Darlington. I had various interactions with Darlington during the height of Nebraska football. He was and is the definition of class personified, whether he knew you personally or just in passing. Besides being gracious with his time, Darlington was a great storyteller, which is becoming a diminished element in today's coach media relationship world. While I've developed skepticism of Matt Rule, I want to commend him. I want to thank him for being genuinely welcoming to Husker coaches of the past, including but not limited to George Darlington. What I would also like to commend Darlington for is his willingness to teach the game to novices and people of all walks of life. I purchased his Football 101 book back more than 30 years ago and still use it for reference points. Any other general thoughts from you guys on Darlington?
Yeah, it's a great mention.
You put it very well.
Yeah, it's a great mention there at the end. Like, I think part of his legacy is certainly, just passing down his knowledge to whomever wanted, like you bump into him on the street and he'll pass down knowledge to you. But not only that, he put camps together and things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, 100%. I think you put it pretty well. You have the football knowledge, and then also the knowledge of the things, the inner workings of the program throughout that long period of time, and specifically the time in the 90s in which Nebraska was absolutely rolling as a program. And so he could pass that along. He's passed that along to many coaches who have followed Tom Osborne, all of them. And they've all sought him out. They've all sought Tom Osborne out himself as well. And so, the thing that I remember about him is just his love for the program, his obvious love for the program, considering he was at basically every practice and game, even during these very, very lean times that we're in right now.
I'm going to try to say this without sounding like a creepy old man, but we have mostly men who write in to our mailbag here. But I love it when we hear from Gigi and other women in our audience, Gigi being the most often cited mailbag questioner of the on the female side. George he opened up the game for women in the state of Nebraska in a way that nobody who's ever set foot in the state has done. And a lot of the work that he did in educating people about the game was geared toward people who didn't play it, women. And they were in his classrooms, and it's such a great service because it's 50% of the people. And a lot of people watch football and love football, and it's not all men. So George was out there educating everyone, but especially catering to the female fans, and that was a fantastic thing.
100%. Thanks for the comment, Vince. We appreciate it as always. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Hopefully, everybody has a good weekend as it heats up around here anyway this weekend. Make sure to find all of the links in our description in our bio today, or the bio of the episode rather. The Everydayer Club, LockedOnNebraska.supercast.com. That link is in the description as well. And then, of course, the Royals link for Husker Day at the K, which is coming up in a few weeks. So get on that as well. If you're listening on video, we'll send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel on audio. Make your second listen Locked On College Football. Thanks. Have a good weekend.